What's going on, top 5 scary family, and welcome back to the scariest page in history ever. Don't forget that. The internet has no shortage of creepy stories. Some Reddit threads are actually quite fun. Instant karma, always a laugh, nature is lit. I'll spend hours on that thread easy. But there is one thread titled Let's Not Meet, and as you would probably have hoped for by clicking this video, they're all pretty damn creepy. Here to share a handful, I'm Taylor McWatters, and this is the top 5 Reddit Let's Not Meet stories. Grab a sody, let's dive in. Number 5, the Brothers Visitor. First up on our list, this one comes from username Florianizer. Good name. I was about 7 years old, my brother about 10, which is the same age difference as me and my older brother, so already I'm creeped out. My brother and my mom had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the washroom. I always knew this because I was a light sleeper and they just couldn't help but keep the door wide open when they flushed. Pause. Do they open it and then flush, or is it open the whole time? Cause gross? So one night, my brother stopped on his way to his bedroom and said, you know what, I'm gonna try and pee before I go to bed. The past few nights I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. And I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling me ghost stories and to try and scare me, or if she was already half asleep and didn't catch it. But she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. On the other hand, I was terrified of it. As you should be, my friend, as you should be. If anyone said that to me, I'd be like, hey, we're either gonna fight or we're gonna go kill some demons right now. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in her car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about the dog's tendency towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mom blurted out, do you remember the time I opened the front door for the cops and the dog ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open the big bag of dog food we had? This really caught me by surprise because in all the years that I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. So I asked her what she was talking about and she looked equally as surprised. Oh, she says, that's right, I never told you because you were too young at the time. One night I woke up hearing noises outside of my window and when I looked, I saw a man staring into my bedroom. She went on to describe how turning on the lights caused him to take off running and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. I can't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up, she says. Tall white male, wearing a striped shirt of some sort and jeans, short dark hair, something like that. They said it matched the description of a man they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. The guy continues to say that although reading it like this, it may seem pretty obvious, but it wasn't until a few years ago that he realized his brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing their house. This is scary twice, okay? The fact that this kid saw what he thought was a ghost, and then it wasn't even a ghost, it was a guy, it was a murderer of all people. No way, that's nuts. This actually happened to me when I was home alone once, when I was a young little Taylor tot, you know? My grandma was there in the basement, but like, I don't know how good her right hooks are, so I was sitting on the computer in my computer room and I look to my right and I see this dude like wearing all black hoodie, like trench coat, like couldn't see his face, it was so dark. So I home alone did. I just pretended like I was talking to somebody in the other room without actually saying anything out loud, but I got too scared when the dude didn't move, so I just started running in my socks. And then I told my grandma and we called the cops together, and then we ate Werther's Originals. It was great, good bonding time with Gam Gam. Honestly, man, that is so scary. I'm so sorry you had to go through that at Florianizer. Number 4, bar trouble. This one is coming in hot from user KennyC5567. One time I went to the bar with one of my friends. I had just turned 21, so I hadn't really been to bars that much yet. My friend and I were drinking on the way to the bar, so he was already pretty drunk. Ah, the classic pre-drink walk. Get those last couple of White Claws in, yeah? When we got there, we sat at a bar and this cute girl came up and talked to my friend and I. This girl was flirting with me and my friend. She could tell that my friend was already pretty drunk. And to be honest, I played along like I was drunk too, since it seemed to be working for my friend. I didn't really know she was trying to get free drinks, so I told her we don't have much money. We're not trying to pop off tonight. She offered to buy us drinks. Okay. She kept buying us drinks over and over, and I started to get confused as to who she liked between me and my friend. Classic scenario. My friend went to the bathroom, but before he came back, he was kicked out by the bouncers. He was too drunk. Eh, we've all been there, man. Just go fire up some Fortnite, order some junior chickens. We'll get him next time, my dude. It's all good. Candace, that was her name. Candace and I went outside with him. She kept telling him to go home with her, and he was so out of it that he could barely answer her. So I told her, hey, you know, he's too drunk. I can't let him go anywhere like this. I didn't want him to wake up hungover in some random house with no car and, more importantly, no idea what happened. Candace kept pushing it, saying that she would take care of him. But I told her no because I had to stay with him. I was more sober than him at this time, so he was my responsibility. He said the only way his friend is going is if he tags along. She had immediately started flirting with me at that point and offered to get my friend a taxi to drive home and said we can go back to her place. Now at this point I'd had a few drinks and I was pretty buzzed, not drunk, so I agree. We get in her car and the vibe feels off. She offers to stop at a liquor store on the way to her house to get more to drink, even offering to buy all of it. I told her I was drunk enough, but she insisted. I said to grab some liquor, but have some apple juice to chase it down. I feel like orange juice would have been better than apple juice, I don't know. Ugh. So I started to act more drunk than I was, purposely calling her the wrong name, yet she didn't react to it. Okay, that's a telltale sign. She just kept letting me call her Carla. She helped me walk inside and I purposely tripped into her front door. She took me inside still, closed the door and locked it. I went to the washroom, looked in the mirror, and I could feel myself getting more and more drunk from that last minute liquor stop that we did. So I turn on the sink and I try and make myself puke. The old pulling the trigger. Nice, we've all been there. Maybe we haven't. Some of us have. You know who you are. Then I hear her voice talking to somebody saying, "He's drunk as hell. He can barely stand up. You do it." So I walked out and she quickly hurried out of the dark living room to her bedroom. She came back and said, "Let's go to my room." And I looked at her bright red hair, because I remembered that, and then into her eyes. They were different. Her face was different. It was another girl with the same hair. Wig, evidently. So I went back to the washroom and apologized for being so drunk on the way. This time I heard her whispering and a male voice whispered back. I didn't concentrate. This was sketchy and I had to get the hell out of there. Yes, now we're talking. So I opened the bathroom window and jumped straight out and ran faster than I ever have in my entire life. I ran through yards until I saw a street and then ran down that street to CVS, waited in front of the cameras and then called the taxi and went home. With so many questions, I went back the next day with friends just to check it out. Turns out it was a summer rental house and somebody had broken in that night. That is insane. What if this guy and his friend went back? What if they both went back? How many people were there? What the hell were they about to do to this guy? That's so scary. How many wigs? What? So many questions. I'm glad both those guys didn't go through with that. I would have left long before that. Number 3, creepy pharmacy. This one comes at us from Kygnus875. This happened maybe 10 years ago when I was in my early 30s. I was standing in line at the local pharmacy to get my prescriptions. This is a small town and I'm a regular there, so they know me on sight. I was behind a couple of other people in line and there were a couple of people behind me. I kept feeling a tickle in my hair in the back of my head, but every time I'd look, the guy there was a few steps back and he was looking at the floor. This happened several times, and by the time I was at the front of the line, the pharmacist told me that she wanted to talk about my medication in the consultation room that they had at the time. I thought this was weird because we both knew I'd been on this medication for years and would be for life. It's nothing new. She told me that the man behind me had been stepping forward, sticking his nose in my hair and smelling before quickly stepping back and looking at the floor. This shook me pretty badly as this is such weird behavior, especially in my little town. If this dude does this anywhere, he's f***ed. Not just a little town. The pharmacy staff insisted on having me wait there until the guy was distracted, and they had a security walk me to my car and watch me drive off to make sure I was gone before Hair Sniffer McGee came out and saw what I was doing and what direction I was driving. I still use this pharmacy and some of the people still work there. I will always be grateful that they took the initiative to make sure I was safe that day. Yeah, kudos to them for looking out. I don't even know what I would have done in that situation, honestly. Like, it's one thing to have this happen and then have to deal with it in the moment, but to not realize that it's happening and to find out later, I would be sick to my stomach. Hell no. Number 2, hotel from hell. This one comes at us from Tbug411. This past Monday, my coworkers and I returned to our hotel from a day of work out in the field. Rebecca and I walked to our rooms, and as we stood outside of our rooms, I opened mine and I saw somebody in the bathroom. So I said, "Hello?" Nobody answered. And my first instinct was that maybe it was a cleaning lady in there. And then I saw my bag with my clothes in her hand. So I said to my coworker, "There's a woman in my room." And then I asked the woman, "What are you doing with my stuff?" And it gets a little fuzzy here because I can't remember everything I said and what she said, but she kept mumbling about how her key still worked. I was in shock and she was obviously very flustered having been caught mid-robbery, so she dropped my bags and fumbled around with her purse and a white plastic bag. By this time, my coworker was behind me watching all the insanity unfold. This woman was scrambling and walking towards the door, and I said, "What's in the bag?" Thinking that it's probably my stuff, and she said, no, it's just my things, I'll show you." And so she did. And I looked in and I didn't see anything of mine, so since I'm obviously in shock at this time, I let her leave. I went into my room and it's been ransacked. I did a quick look around to see if anything had been taken. All of my electronics were still there, and then I went into the bathroom and I saw my underwear, my bikini, and my clothes just shoved into my own bags randomly. And then I looked on the counter and I saw that she got into my medication. I'm not sure what was going through my head at the moment other than I wanted it back, so I ran out the door to go find her. I ran to the laundry room downstairs and out to the side of the hotel, and I didn't see her. I realized I was never gonna find her, so my coworker and I went down to the lobby to tell them what had happened, and then we all called the police. When we went back up to my room to wait, I noticed that there is this metal bat on my bed, a little larger than one of those novelty wooden bats that you get at a baseball game. But there's also a flashlight on the end. She also left behind a necklace that must have fallen out of her bag when she was scrambling with mine. I was mostly freaking out at this point because I thought that she'd gotten away with my medication that I need. Of course, that's a very natural thing to think of, also a very adult thing to think of after you got robbed. The police got there and took our statements and looked around the room as well. One thing that I noticed was that there were like little bits of drywall in the sink, and I pointed that out to the cops, but none of us really knew where it came from. We started looking at the door and the windows to see if she pried her way in maybe somehow, but there's nothing. So we kind of just went with the idea that she had a spare key or something like that, even though the hotel front desk was adamant that there's no way that could be the case. The officer that came back brought 2 more officers as backup because they thought the woman might still be in the vicinity. But after our statements were taken, there was really nothing else they could do, so they left. I sat down to finally make some calls to tell people, and as I'm on the phone thinking about the drywall in the sink, and it still didn't make sense to me, and then it hit me. I got my coworker and asked her to help me pull up this mirror on the wall, and we took the mirror down, and there's a hole there just big enough for somebody to squeeze through. So I asked Brian and Rebecca if I should call the cops again to let them know that I had found this, and my boss said, "There's still 2 cop cars in the parking lot." So I went down to tell them, and the female cop kind of rolled her eyes, but the young guy said, "All right, I'll come check it out." They both come back up, look in the hole, and found a pillow, blankets, cigarettes, clothes, toothbrushes. This woman had been living in the wall behind my mirror for God knows how long. She had access to me in my room at all times. One of the officers called the original officer to come back and take photos. She explained to him what was going on, and all you hear over the radio is that cop say, "No away." Obviously, we packed up and left immediately, but what's even crazier is that she has probably been there a long time. The last time we stayed at this hotel, I would randomly smell cigarette smoke, and I assumed somebody was smoking in their bathroom and I was traveling through the vents. But no, it was just somebody smoking on the other side of a mirror. She had access to other rooms too. The holes in the wall were from a renovation, and the hotel hadn't properly patched them up, so they just cover them up with mirrors. What is a Shawshank Redemption? Just put a poster of someone? She could have been hanging out in people's rooms when they were gone. So that's what it looked like. That's the scariest story. Like, imagine just sitting on the toilet and then the mirror starts to move with like fingers behind it. Let's just say it would be a pretty good thing I was already sitting on the toilet when that happened. And finally, number 1, Come Here Baby. This one comes from Arnold Schrodinger. A few years ago, I was living alone in a little house which had a heavy back door that would swell up a bit after it rained, and it gets really tough to open and it makes a lot of noise. Happens with my door as well. Makes no sense. It's almost like your door gets fat. It's like, what are you doing? Late one night, I had passed out on my sofa in the living room on the opposite side of the house, but woke up to something which I now assume was the back door being opened. I'm an idiot, by the way, and I used to never lock the back door. Netflix was still blaring away on the laptop as I slowly squinted my eyes open and realized there was this black outline of someone standing still in the hallway looking down at me. And being completely disoriented in my waking state, my mind latched on to the first thought that came to my mind, which was that maybe it was my girlfriend. I was naked at the time, and I pulled my blanket back with my legs spread out and my junk hanging out, and I called to her in my best deep sexy voice, "Come here, baby." Upon discovering on a naked 6 foot 200 pound man beckoning to them with his genitalia, the not my girlfriend person immediately turned around, revealing a large backpack, and booked it for the back door. And by the time I stumbled up to the door, all I could hear was them taking off into the darkness at full sprint. I could only guess, based on their height, that they did not come here with the bold intention of being the little spoon. Honestly, I'm glad this happened the way it did. I mean, the burglar came in, saw your sleepy, naked, junk out body, and then left empty-handed. Good. Go wash your eyes out and stop robbing people while you're at it. Guys, always lock your doors. The countless stories that I've heard about my friends getting robbed at school, always put a little piece of wood in your sliding glass doors. My buddy one summer just kept his screen door locked at the back of the house because he wanted the breeze. Give me nail clippers and 1 minute, I'll get through a screen. You know what's worse than sweating? Sweating and crying because you got robbed and you're still hot. Enjoy the breeze. Guys, that's all the time we have for today. If you want to hear more of these, comment down below, because unfortunately, the world sucks and these Let's Not Meet stories are always coming out. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and then even that little cheeky notification bell. That way when we go live, you get notified and then we can all talk spooky stuff in the comments. I'm Taylor McWatters. See ya.